Uh-oh. Good morning, everyone. Call to order the HARC Chair meeting of Friday, March 21st, 9 a.m. Rebecca Hall. It is a hybrid meeting at 113 West Columbia. If you're out there electronically, just a reminder to, which I'll go through in a minute, to raise your hand if you have comments. The purpose of HARC is to preserve, maintain, and enhance the historic character, scale, architectural integrity, and cultural resources of the town and the Telluride Historic Landmark District. We'll do the roll call from staff. We have Erica, Piper, Tiffany, Kristen, Darren. Anybody else? I guess that's it. And roll call from the board. Mark Shambaugh present, just for the record. As I started to say, if there's any public comment on non-agenda items, please raise your hand electronically on your mobile device. Anybody want to talk about non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none. Going to move on. We have two public hearing items. The first one is 369 East Galena. CA 3 continued from December 20th, 24th, and February 21st. Consideration of amendment of the CA 10399 that does not constitute a vested site-specific plan per land use code 7203 B3D3. It's at lot 2, block 37, 369 East Galena. It's in the residential zone district. 369 East Galena Avenue are the owners. Applicant Mike Balzer of Tommy Pine Architects. And I think Chris and Tommy may be on. And staff member Erica Jensen. And Erica, welcome to your last meeting and wish you well. But I look forward to your remarks, and let's go ahead. You take over the first one.
Great, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Great, okay. So we're here for the review of 369 East Galena. You haven't seen it in a while. It was continued from the December 20th, 24 meeting, and then without discussion from February 21st. So you haven't seen this since December. Just a reminder, it was a CA amendment that was elevated because of changes to the earth berm and then some stylistic issues with some gutters. So condition 2 from December was to revise the projecting gutter and chain to protrude significantly less in length. That has been revised. That's a photo from before, and then is the plan set from after with how they will look after they are changed, and staff finds that it's a much more appropriate style for town. Condition 1 from December was to modify the gabion secondary wall to be reduced depth and review options for partial steel cladding, partial house stone cladding, while transforming this into a planter, or convert this to an earth berm or wall that was originally approved. So just a reminder, this is what it looked like in December. And this is what the applicant is now proposing. So here's before on your screen and after, and they're proposing to add a steel planter on the outside of the walls to help them blend in more with the topography. As you can see, here's a couple other views. You can see the planters on the outside of the walls. So the walls were not reduced in depth. The walls did not have any cladding added to them, but there were planters added to the outside. And staff is not leaving it up, but hoping the chair can look at this and see if the intent of the condition was met. And I'm happy to answer any questions before we hear from the applicant.
Okay, I mean, I can ask the applicant that, but I
Mhm.
didn't pick up on what the depth of these new planters were at the base of this gabion wall. Do you happen to know? If not, I'll have them.
No, and I know they have their landscape architects on Zoom as well, so I'm sure they'll be able to answer a lot of detailed questions.
Okay, thank you, Erica, and
Mhm.
we'll hear from the applicant if you want to share your screen remote.
Sure. Good morning, Mark. Thanks, Erica. Sorry.
Go ahead and read your name in the record just so we.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning. Thank you. Sorry it took us a little bit of time to get back here, but we had to work through a few things, so appreciate your working with us. As far as the uh, designs of the plans themselves, sorry, I gotta do this manually. Um, you know, the reason for this change, and I don't know if this was really clearly articulated in the prior events, but we just really wanted to go back through it. You know, the earth berm rockfall fence was not supported by Public Works because it went into the right of way, the Alder right of way. And so the only solution was to design on site. It really is an unfortunate situation where Public Works and the building department were aware of the change. And unfortunately, there wasn't a CA amendment application submitted. So it's, you know, just truly everyone thought it was done. Um, in terms of the project structurally engineered design, it was done by Mike Arbany. So it was redesigned on site. And this is really, I'm not trying to be difficult by this, but I have sat in so many HARC meetings where I've heard HARC does not review the design of rockfall fences. I mean, I've heard that a lot over the years, right? And so we really want to understand why are we looking at this per the design guidelines when rockfall fences traditionally have it, and getting some understanding of that going forward, because we know there's going to be other projects we're working on the basically the north side of town where there's going to be rockfall fences. So, you know, if you think about rockfall fence design, the current solution really is a very creative approach. It's way more aesthetically pleasing than a normal rockfall fence. And so we just hope, I guess, as a first blush, you kind of consider that our client truly likes this design. They would like to keep this rockfall fence as designed. And so that's kind of our first take. But again, if the town is now going to regulate the design of rockfall fences, we do have a design solution as well too. I just wanted to show kind of the as is condition again, just being a rockfall fence. This has to be more pleasing than the one above the little ADU back here, which is a traditional rockfall fence like you typically see. This was to protect rocks that come down on the side of the building. This is just the uphill view of it. Again, I just think it's a creative solution for rockfall and Telluride. I'm showing this view because the steel plate was added to the front of the utility box as a solution because it was pretty awful looking. Not awful. It was not looking very good, but so, in combination, these lower trees and all this was kind of the solution on this corner. And then, that's the existing conditions above. And one thing we did look at, Mark, was, can we even reduce the width of these baskets? And Mark Arbany clearly said, no, we can't. They have to be designed a certain width to capture that rockfall energy. And so working around that, it really did come down to landscaping or a stone veneer solution. A stone veneer would just really make that appear part of massing. And so we're really trying to keep this more as an exterior. What it is, it's an exterior rockfall fence. And the planters, we think, again, if we're going to regulate design of rockfall fences, then we think it meets the intent of the HARC condition, which is to kind of break up that massing where there were some concerns. This is kind of just the elevation view. Looking back, you can see the planters kind of in the foreground. This one actually does wrap around on this side too. So it provides some level of screening. This is a rendering from Superbloom, Stacy's firm. This shows the steel plating, kind of that darker steel that matches up front. We were in a meeting on Monday and we were just chatting about this, and it was like, can we make this look a little bit lighter? Because the black's kind of a heavy steel, color, and I get that looks a little heavier. So, if you do a rusted Corten as an option that doesn't, it kind of blends better into the mountain backdrop and, it's not as bold. So a couple options for you to think about. Um, with that, we're here to answer any questions you have. And Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, just there was a question about the depth of what we're proposing.
Oh,
to
yeah,
do
thank you.
planters at the base of the hill thicker or the gabion baskets, and it's about 14 inches, 14 to 16.
The planters or the
Yeah.
wall?
The planters.
Okay, and how wide was that gabion rockfall fence?
It's approximate. What's exposed is approximately 3.5 feet depth.
Okay. And planters 14 inches. Okay. Well, questions. I don't want to turn it into a question, but I don't see us reviewing the detailed design of rockfall fences up above, but this has everything to do with mass and scale. It's attached to the building. So that's the difference in my mind and why we need to reach a resolution. And I understand this is a great example of some silos. The building department knew about it, but then nobody got back to HARC and then it got built and then, this is not good for anybody. So I understand that. I'm by that. One of my options that I threw out of three options was to maybe put a piece of steel in the middle of that. I know it's a deeper wall, but of the 3.5 foot exposed part, and then that could be narrowed to maybe 2 foot proud sticking out. And did Mike Arbony, your structural engineer, review that option? I realize you'd have to remove some rock, but then put a piece of steel in there. But that's my first question. That was
Mike,
one of
you
the options to
that
narrow
one.
I think we discussed that, but if that's the case, that it's rather than the hill thicker absorbing whatever the rockfall is, it would just deflect it and it would continue to roll down the hill. We're trying to soak it up so it stops.
Okay. Yeah. And again, before I lose you to deliberations, I want to give you a chance to comment as I create another question here maybe, and that is, I went out there yesterday and took an even more zoomed in photo and I played with metal panels. As staff can see here, maybe you can see on the camera, I don't know, but that's not helping. And so how tall is this proposed planter? And can you go back to that slide
Yeah,
and zoom in on those planters for me?
sure. Sorry. Stacy, you want to answer the question here in terms of the height of the planters that are designed?
Can you zoom in on that? Thanks.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
Mike, do you have that information? Let me just pull up the drawing.
Stacy, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi everyone. I'm Stacy Passmore. I'm a landscape architect and a planner with Super Bloom. We're the landscape architect on the project. The question about how high they are, I think they vary in height because the grade is sloping. Mike, do you have I know I think they vary from less than a foot to a couple feet.
Sorry, they vary in height from, they die into the grade, so 0 up to that highest one is about 4 feet tall. That one up front is about 2.5 feet tall.
You mean on the south?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the most concerning part of this is the far north section of the quote 3 sections of gambrel wall. I mean, that's the most obnoxious and adds the most mass and scale to this. Versus
You mean
the smaller,
the third one up?
yeah, the highest one on the hill.
Okay.
And so another question is, I see these hundreds of trees planted that at least appear in my photo from yesterday. Does this neighbor, or does this owner owns this adjacent lot, I assume?
No, the town public works department approved the landscape planting in the right of way as part of the
Oh, the right.
overall project. That's Karen worked with the team, as part of that whole, how do
Okay,
you
so
soften it?
let me just do a what if. What if my concerns, which are most prominent on that upper wall as we just discussed, which must be I mean, it's just massive. That must be 7 feet tall, right?
No, that's 4.5.
No,
Okay.
the whole Gabion wall as constructed, I think is what Mark's question was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's only about
Yeah, I
3
think
feet,
that,
3 or 4
I
feet
think
down.
it was about 6. 6, maybe
6 feet.
6.5
Okay,
is
so
the highest point.
that's my primary concern, and I was wondering why Board of Works would create a problem. And I don't want to make a stupid little mound, but why you couldn't put a couple truckloads of dirt and then taper that off so it looks more natural and undulating, and get rid of or I should say, cover up at least 3 feet of that wall, and then let it taper down, because the lower two sections just aren't as um, violating of the guidelines, I think, mass and scale. And I want to ask it one last time before I make a ruling.
Sure. So you're talking about this steel lower planter,
Yeah.
concealing more of that?
Yeah, I mean, I wondered why a natural earth berm couldn't go against the Gabion wall. I'm not sure the planters, I thought, it was one of 3 solutions we talked about, but I'm not sure it doesn't even add more mass and scale, with a trifecta of walls, 1, 2, and 3, the stone, the Gabion, and now this planter wall. Could you bring in some dirt and put up there and then taper it downhill just a little bit so it doesn't look like a mound, and cover up, let's say, 3 feet of that wall, Mike? I don't know, or the landscaper, Stacy. Is that viable?
I don't know that we could cover up 3 feet. There isn't enough depth there to get,
To get
say a one-to-one
with the right of way?
berm.
You'd
All
have
right.
to basically come off that wall with a boulder type wall, going out perpendicular from it to, that's a couple feet, 2 or 3
All
feet
right.
tall. It's possible to do that, and Public Works may support it if it's not a retaining wall in the right of way, because Public Works opinions on boulder walls and rights of ways is pretty limited. They'll say it's okay if it's more of a loose, planting of boulders is what our experience has been. So we could probably do something like that working with Public Works, as long as it's not a full retaining wall, and then backfill behind it, somewhat. But Stacy, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we did early on talk about that as an idea. So maybe instead of having the new steel planters, having more boulders and tucking, evergreen shrubs and grasses within that. So it kind of transitioned more in a kind of mountain, rocky way. But I think Chris is right. Like putting up substantial amounts of berming would require more like a retaining wall. And it would also encroach quite a bit onto the public works right of way, which they indicated. I mean, the trees are planted there. There's a lot of them, but it sounded like anything more permanent was like not an ideal solution on their
Yeah.
end.
And Mark, just, before you get into deliberations, we want to come up with a solution that works for everyone here. We're not, we took our best crack at this and wanted to have this discussion with you today. If that's going to be a part of your, consideration, in doing it, I'm fairly confident we could do some sort of boulders going, perpendicular to the house and that wall, and do earth in it, working with Public Works, but I just don't know what level they're going to support. It can't be a formal retaining wall because they don't like structures in.
Understood. All right. Well, I get the limitation. My idea of the earthen berm, it'd have to taper out so far. It'll be on the town's land. They're not going to like it. So I don't need to wait for them to weigh in on that. But the other option is, historically, we don't allow plantings like the 4, those aren't mugo pines, but pines that are down on the lower section, so to speak, on the south, for those to extend on up instead of planters. I looked at that. I drew a little sketch of that myself, but I
Sorry,
guess
could you clarify that comment? You don't allow.
we don't normally allow plantings to solve the mass and scale problem and or
I see.
hiding hot tubs because then they die and we've been through this rodeo before, but it's clearly more concern to me. Could you slide back up the hill, that photo? Yeah. About that upper one that's 6 feet something tall, although whatever you do there. So I guess before I lose you, I'm contemplating, I don't like to continue these relatively easy small ones, but a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I think I'd like to see two options, and I'll get to that in my deliberations, of which we have spoken about both of these heretofore. So unless you have any other comments.
Well, we did actually during our exploration, and Chris, you can say no, but we did actually study using boulders, just organic boulders. I don't know if you want me to show you that image or not, or if it's irrelevant.
That's fine to share, if see
Okay.
like that as an option.
Boulders, as Chris said, with natural plantings. I mean, I'm just trying to see if it's better than these planters.
Do you want me to show you what we have? Let's
Yeah,
see.
go ahead. Just
Okay,
just
it may
briefly,
not
and then
be
we're
like-
gonna move
You
on.
can say it's not exactly what you're thinking, but oh, I just requested the permission to share.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out and it's not being kind to me. There we go.
Yay, okay. Share. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
And sorry, it is trickier to kind of represent this because as we're also showing are the trees that are planted there, but if you can see this kind of tucked in the back,
Can you
like
zoom
having
in
a,
little?
yeah, actually, let me download this. Hold on. Okay. So this is kind of like the existing condition. There are grasses planted already at the top. They were planted at the very, very end of the fall, so they haven't really established themselves yet. And then here's kind of like an idea that we could have a few boulders tucked along those walls. And oh, that was a different idea. That was the planter. Adding more grasses as well, like tucked within them. I mean,
Can you
I
zoom
do-
in on so I can see the boulders? Can you zoom in?
sorry, I know it's like also hard to tell because
mean,
there are
I can't really see.
the trees here, but I think more just like the aesthetic of what is kind of a natural boulder field, let's say, and having some of them tucked up against the wall there with you can also see that right now, again, the landscaping was installed, and I know you don't want to use landscaping as a permanent solution, but these grasses will grow several feet tall, and we did talk about adding, this is fern bush, it's an evergreen. There are other, not like giant pine trees, but we could do like a Scotch pine, which is also kind of a lower shrub that would feel very natural to this environment and could also kind of, tie into a kind of more organic screening that makes it feel less abrupt, I think, from what I'm hearing you say. It's more like the abruptness of it, perhaps.
Okay. All right. And just FYI, the Mugo pines are growing 2 blocks away. And, they get to 5, 6, sometimes 7 feet, that,
These are junipers, and they will also grow taller, yeah.
so the one thing is, did the town plant these junipers that I see out in the middle where all these trees are? Or is that the owner?
I don't know the full backstory, Chris or Mike, but
The owner planted all of
Yeah.
the trees
Okay.
with some direction from Karen.
Okay. I think, I don't have any other questions, and we'll hear from the public unless you have any final statement.
No. No, appreciate you working with us and sharing your thoughts. So thank you.
No public comment. I don't see anybody electronically. If you're out there, raise your hand. And Tiffany, I don't see any, do you? Okay. All right. So we've gone round and round. This piece of steel in the middle of that, narrowing that Gabion wall is, I understand, not going to work. And so I think there's two options, and I think I need to continue this and see it again. And the good news is, on the argument I made about plantings, the town owns this land. They're planting the trees, so I don't think they're going to remove the trees. But then again, there's 4 months a year or 5 months a year where they don't have leaves. So I'm going to make a motion to continue to the April 18th, 2025 chair meeting, the CA amendment at 369 East Galena Lot 2, Block 37, Town of Telluride, based on the staff memo dated March 21st, 2025, with the following conditions. One, period. Present two options, or excuse me, let me start. One, present a minimum of two options in addition to the planters shown at today's meetings, to include either continuation of similar to juniper or mugo pines up the hill on the east side, especially emphasizing the further hiding of the north section of the Gabion wall, which is over 6 feet tall, or a solution of natural boulders mixed in with natural bushes and landscaping along the three Gabion walls coming down the hill from the top, but especially mitigating the upper north section per TH3C, TH10C, TH14B1 and C4, TH19A2. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at the public hearing held on March 21st, 2025. I have notice of such hearing right as required by the land use code. And did I read in the record correctly, continuing to April 18th, Tiffany?
Yes.
Okay, just want to triple check. Provides plans incorporating the conditions of approval. Well, there is no approval today, so we'll see you in April, and I think we'll be able to review from these three choices, today's planners and these two options, some sort of viable solution, and I'll see you in April. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, the last hearing is the Nugget Edition, Alternation 1. Alteration 1, consideration amendment of the CA 8333 that does not constitute a vested site-specific development plan per land use code 7203B3D3. Illegal description is Lot 39R, Block 3. It's at 207 West Colorado. It's a historic commercial district, and the owner is National Film Preserve, and applicant Sante Architects, and staff member Erica Jensen. Erica?
Great, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So we're up 207 West Colorado, as everyone knows it, the Nugget. This is an application for a CA amendment. So I think most people are pretty familiar with this building. It's a contributing resource to the district. It's a local landmark, and it has originally approved plans from 2005. So the applicant is proposing to revise the form and materials of the rear addition and the third level penthouse. So you can see the original approval from 2005. The rear addition really did mimic the Nugget in material and form with the arched doorways and the stone. And the applicant is now proposing to change the form and materials of the addition to help it stand on its own and be more distinguished from the historic building. Staff has found that the original approval from 2005 is not compliant with preservation theory any longer, or our design guidelines. Our design guidelines really do want to see additions that clearly delineate from the historic building, and what the applicant is proposing really does show that this is a modern addition to a very important contributing building. And then you can see another elevation. The third level penthouse is staying mostly the same, just some changes in form and material. None of the setbacks are changing. None of the floor areas are changing, except that if the tower is opened up and the doors are removed, the floor area of this project will actually slightly decrease, but all the setbacks are staying the same, especially on that third level. There's no changes to any of the setbacks. And here you can see another view of that third level penthouse, which is pushed pretty far back from Colorado. I believe on Colorado, it's 26 feet. And then on the side, I believe it's at least 18 feet. But if you have questions about that, I think the applicant can maybe answer that a bit better. There is only one condition staff found, and it is to revise the plans to keep the tower doors intact. The applicant is proposing to remove the tower doors and open up the tower. All historic photos I've been able to find from the period of significance show that the tower was closed, and it would be inappropriate to remove these doors because that opening will be visible from Main Street and will drastically change the appearance of the tower. And since it has always been a closed tower, opening it up would be inappropriate. And I'm happy to answer any questions before we hear from the applicant. They have worked extremely hard with staff to come forward with an application that is substantially compliant with the design guidelines.
Okay, just two questions and then we'll hear from the applicant, which I'm sure they'll comment on. But on this slide, introducing this new door,
Mhm.
I want to make sure I get it. Which two doors?
So doors currently exist on the tower
Yeah.
in like right here. They want to remove the doors and just have the tower be open.
Okay,
All
but
the
those
time.
the doors face west.
The doors face north and west, yes. There's two openings on the tower.
Huh. Okay, well, we'll let the applicant comment on the reasoning, but can you go back to the slide of the change in material cladding that it sounds like did not make your condition, but I have a question. Okay, there you go. So on the left, this is obviously what we approved with that. Is it the same stone continuing?
So it was, unfortunately, since this approval was from 2005, it was a bit vague in materiality. So it didn't specifically call out what material that stone would be. But it seemed like the intent of the stone was to mimic the nugget almost in appearance.
Okay, well, I'm sure the applicant will comment on that, and so I don't have any further questions. We'll hear from the applicant. Go ahead and share your screen and do the intro, Peter.
Good morning, Peter Sante, Sante Architects for Current Film Festival. Here with Eric Brandt also.
No, Brandt Garber.
Sorry. I worked for Eric Brandt 30 years ago. Anyway, Brandt Garber, Film Festival. Thank you, Erica. And I think it's our pleasure to be your last application here. So we feel special. Thank you, Mark, and be happy to answer any questions here. I know the tower was an item of concern, and staff had made us well aware of that, I think, in our conversations coming to what we felt was a a more correct way of treating the addition to the Nugget building and not trying to just plot ahead with an approval from 20 or more years ago. And so anyway, we feel very good about the reception for all of that. I think that the tower, just as a little reminder, 5 or so years ago, the tower was returned to the building. And as a part of that, it was a prior owner. And as a part of that effort, the doors, there are 2 sets of double doors, Mark, that are arch-topped doors that face interior to the project. You can see the west-facing door from Elks Park at the top of Main Street, the crown of Main Street. You can just see the tops of the doors that face west. And there are north doors as well that you can see from up on First Street here on Columbia. And those doors do not appear to have been historic. There was a historic door on the tower on the north side, from what we can tell. And we did provide a photograph of light coming through that door, or the door being open. But let me go back to, so 5 years ago when the tower was returned, these doors were put in place. That it's not a usable rooftop.
We go back to that photo. Erica, could you take us to the photo as he speaks?
Yep.
Or if whoever's operating.
So
Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead and
Sure,
would you
sure,
repeat
sure.
that?
So these 2 historic photos on the right show the west side of the tower.
Yeah.
And the north and west side of the tower were not ever masonry. There's no stone to support masonry there below. And
Looks like they ran out of money.
well, we're just not sure if it's metal or tar paper or some more casual material on those 2 interior facing sides. And I will say, just in the last 5 years since the tower has been replaced, Jonna was the first person to ask me, and I think she's had this question, and maybe Erica has herself, from the public asking, when is the tower going to be finished? Yeah. Right? You kind of shake.
Everybody asks that.
Yeah, you've heard this as well. And I've kind of fielded a few of these questions, Brant, perhaps. So the
most asked question I got when we purchased the building.
Yeah.
More than like, what are you gonna do?
Did you run out of money?
the metal that is cladding the 2 non stone sides of the tower was determined rather casually. In hindsight, it was something at that time 5 years ago that was viewed as not necessarily a permanent or a long lasting or highly scrutinized decision. And in hindsight, I think I wish I had advocated for a more subordinate, something a little less bold, a little softer, not trying to mimic stone, but something just a little grayer in tone or something that would not draw your eye quite so much and look unfinished, but not look like it's stone. And I think that is on my list of things to do, just as somebody who's been working on the property for a while, would like to see the tower, those 2 interior facing sides, be a softer color and less contrasting to and not jump out at you and be as attention grabbing in that process. So I think the doors that are there, I have sent Brant a half a dozen texts over the last 3 years. The doors blow open on occasion, and I remind him somebody needs to get up there and close the door. That said, I think that the use of the tower roof, what is coming with the Nugget building expansion and restoration here, is a rooftop pavilion, educational pavilion, and outdoor terraces that really are going to be an amenity to the community and a well appreciated rooftop condition, and our surrounding terraces that pass through the tower, our desire to have the doors removed has to do with a design for the rooftop terrace and an elevated set of walkways that allow you to view and not have the parapet. The historic parapet that has been returned is roughly 7 feet in height when you stand on the roof, when you would stand on the new roof terrace. And so we have these elevated walkways so that we're able to look out over that parapet and not sort of just at the parapet itself. And as a part of that, removing the doors allows that to be a circulation path and more freely traversed. That all said, I think today I think we understand well some concern about this, and I think we can appreciate that and would like, I think, to be able to come back with a little more information or to clarify the intent for the tower treatment and doors or no doors, and to be able to meet with you about that and talk more. And I think if I were to describe, I think an ideal intent, I've described the wall treatment as being more subordinate and sort of neutral in color. We have proposed removing the doors and the interior of the tower being a micro cement, like a masonry troweled finish, which is kind of fits that color description that I've described on the outside.
Okay.
It may be that what I'm describing is a troweled up micro cement finish outside and inside the tower, not masonry, but something that's soft. So and in that description, you're really not distinguishing whether you're not seeing doors. You're not really sure if it's inside or outside. It's all kind of one color. And I think that is what I would like to come back, not sort of maybe push for that approval today, and knowing it's been a condition of concern. But I think the things we'd like to clarify with that too, I think, is to clarify the door locations and height. I think our proposal can show that the doors can be lowered and they can be pulled further away from the right of ways or the field of view. And I think that might be of interest or might be pertinent to that decision.
And do you need two doors?
To pass through, yes. The walkway exists on Park Street and Main Street, that elevated walkway. And so it's for exiting and for ADA, that pass through is something we have needs for. So
And do you need to have, I mean, it would say probably, it's not my purview, $30,000 or more, but why do you have to have the walkway going up the street versus just on Main Street and passing through the tower?
There's when we provided an elevated overlook, we had to do so and comply with ADA, and to be able to we have a lift. Someone in a wheelchair with accessibility challenges to be able to equally access that elevated platform, and locations for that, but both a stair and that lift need to be accommodated. And currently, Mark, that lift is on the east side, northeast end. And there's a stair on one. There's stairs on both ends, but there's a lift on one, so that we do that. So the condition I've described, Mark, on both Fur and over Fur and Main is the same and consistent. That parapet is 7 feet high. That historic parapet is the same for both.
Well, under the guy.
Also, sorry,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add a little bit of information. I've been liaising with Cindy Nasky with the State Historical Board throughout the project to make sure that we're all on the same page, everybody's informed, all that kind of stuff. And I've discussed this condition with her. And she's, I think, pretty much in agreement with Peter. I don't want to put any words, but to paraphrase what I believe her message was to me and us was she just wants something up there that does not draw a lot of attention, but that because the historical condition at the time, you know, the period isn't necessarily set. No, that's a bad one. I was gonna say set in stone, but ambiguous is probably a better word. That her main concern was that whatever solution came up there was not something that attracted much attention, had some, you know, had a certain amount of neutrality to it. Because I had also brought up with her that I get lots of comments about those two black faces. And I myself would question whether that's actually a good historical marker, because if it was tar paper or whatever was up there, it would have grayed and been flappy or whatever. Or maybe they just used tin.
Maybe they just ran out of money. But anyway, that's not my
You know,
purview.
so there's this ambiguity, there. And I would like to also, you know, stay in touch with her, but her point of view was like, make sure it's something that is not an eye grabber, basically.
Yeah, okay. And just to put that thought to bed on why it couldn't, the catwalk just be on Colorado, it's because of the egress going up Fur, that you have to go through the tower. Well, why couldn't it just be along Colorado, have this wonderful view of this elevated platform
Or
or,
not engage the tower with the windows.
yeah,
I'm not saying it couldn't be redesigned, Mark, but I think that, the overlook of the 7-foot parapet condition was one that we were trying to provide an opportunity and amenity to the, tower, to the rooftop, and not have this, you know, I have spent time on the Sheridan's rooftop, which is about a 5-foot,
yeah,
and it's rather enclosing, and these parapets, they're tall and then they're also deep. And, you know, we're not trying to create an overlook per se, but I think it is very different how you experience a rooftop if you're down in a hole
right,
versus
yeah.
being able to at least have
No,
your eye over the
No,
top.
no, my question is, why wouldn't you just have your eye over the top on Main Street and not necessarily at Fur, and you wouldn't have to, we wouldn't have to deal with this door question, although your comment about you're maybe looking at lowering those, I don't know, maybe that's probably worth
Yeah,
continuing.
I think just to put a point on it, I think if it were to be just on Main Street, we would still have a 7-foot sort of enclosed condition on the First Street side, which is what I think we were interested in not having.
An
So
enclosed,
the elevated walkway
mhm,
on both sides takes away the condition of people not being able to see out or being contained with their eyes, you know, below the parapet on the First Street side, which you were suggesting.
yeah.
As an option.
So saving a lot of money and historically just having this new elevated walkway on Colorado side only and not having to replace these doors, which is the topic here on the tower, doesn't work because you just summarize, because why do you need the walkway on the east side? That's what I'm asking.
It's again, we're
Not much of a view. Well, and never mind.
It's an amenity. I mean, I would say as a point of view of the client, it's amenity. It makes that rooftop space more hospitable
Okay.
in general.
All right. Well, let's, I think we'll get to public comment in a moment, but which I'm not sure there is any, but I hear you about taking another look at it, and by the way, as an aside, it's not even on the agenda, but I thought it was a good idea to relook at some new material on what everybody probably goes to your project manager and complains about on those two sides. But then the other part though is this addition here. And can we put that back up?
Yep.
near the alley. I mean, originally it was shown as stone, same as it's the building, right? And let's look at the best view of that. Yeah. And is it just an economic driver to,
No,
Not at all.
okay,
Well, I think
just to differentiate what's historic and what's not?
it just looked, yeah, I think in viewing it, there were no material images of the addition materials to compare to the historic stone facades we know well. But from the hand-drawn black and white and the descriptions, it was apparent that continuing similar stone, if not in color, around over the addition to the rear was the intent. And I think what in the conversations, we were a little challenged by this. It didn't feel right. I think in conversations with staff and working with the clients, sort of chatting through this, I think we our appreciation of respecting the facade, the historic stone facades, and distinguishing from them kind of came into focus.
Mhm.
And with that, we
yeah, well, and if you also looked at some of the other details, like the columns were copper. And to me, when I looked at what was there, it was sort of like you have the building, which has a lot of integrity and what it is, and then you had somebody that on paper had tried to mimic it, but politely not to the same quality level, the rest of it.
Can I go back to the rendering that shows it clad in the similar or same stone? Okay,
But you see, like those columns were,
Yeah.
and the arch was copper.
yeah,
You know, the arches don't,
huh,
and from everything that I've known from historic preservation, it is nice to make that contrast of here is the building that we're honoring and
yeah,
here's,
you're not supposed to mimic.
yeah.
what was your thought there, Mark?
Well, uh, I'm trying to, per the Secretary of Interior's guidelines, do the real litmus test. The rule of thumb is when you walk by, what would the passerby, so you know this very well, see and notice. And I noticed, I mean, the original, which is probably what Erica was thinking in her recommendation to approve a material change, it could confuse the passerby, what was historic, what was not. And, you know, I guess I get that. And I may go back and ask Eric a question in a moment when I'm in deliberations, but maybe not now. So I guess that was the impetus. Remind me, although it's not part of this ruling, because we already approved it, is that 18 feet back on the third floor to the penthouse addition and 28 feet from Main Street? Am I remembering that correctly?
I would take your word for it. I know we haven't moved it.
Okay,
And
I think it's 26 from Main Street and around 18 for the
okay.
east.
Very good, Erica. And hey, and why I've got you
Yep.
here, since we're talking about it. And plus we have the 7-foot wall, which most people don't have to hide the third floor, right? Which is what the guidelines would suggest. I mean, I gotta be this is one of the most, like, it's one of the dozen landmark buildings in town, and probably people could argue one of the most iconic, or
Yes.
the most iconic.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm taking my time
Mhm.
thinking out here and any other questions, and then but before I lose you, I just wanted to go through any final dialogue, before getting deliberations. So can we go back now to the material change slide? And I know clearly that we need to differentiate the historic from non-historic. It's just that it's hanging over my head is this National Historic Landmark status, and is that it's differentiated, but has it gone too far? You know, I don't know.
well, I will say, I think thought process we had gone through, Mark, and trying to imagine a new stone veneer, a new stone going up against, literally contacting the stone of the
Yeah.
nugget building. And we were having a real hard time, like, what is this? How tight? What's the scale? What's the, all the character of it? We're like, no, it shouldn't be. It should not be stone. And that's what the approval was, just continuing
The stone, yeah.
in different size blocks,
Oh,
carrying, mimicking the parapet and it just was like, okay, we need to step back. I think looking at the town, historic commercial, material palette, it's not a long one. Like it's brick, it's
Yeah.
wood. It's a pretty concise
Oh.
metal.
I see it.
So there's brick here, which is most common and ubiquitous, maybe, historic commercial material, that we have, and we have a horizontal painted metal, over the covered entry as well, that then continues up into the mechanical garden 18 feet or whatever back.
Okay, all right. Well, at this point, and looks like we're gonna continue anyway, I'm just kind of uncertain about this monument in this town. And whether that's metal siding?
Correct. An 8-inch painted.
Yeah.
Ask a question.
That answered my question. I'm not supposed to do anything other than ask questions here, but, okay, but I just have concern over it and I might want to see another option. That's all I'm saying. Just a rendering of slightly different material, than just,
You can imagine, that again, it's a short palette of materials. I think, Erica could speak to this more, in the historic commercial zone district. Brick, wood, steel, I think are acceptable, and there may be other variations, Erica, I'm forgetting, but it's a pretty short list. And where you see the horizontal steel is painted, it's not a glossy, it's not a reflective.
flat enamel, yeah.
It's a matte, it'll be a subdued finish and not a glossy one. I think, the brick is described as an earth tone. We haven't specified if it's, sort of a historic orange, or a red, but it's described as earth tones, and it's depicted as kind of a, soft kind of Adobe type color, which is, I think, appropriate. It feels.
But it's just an
supportive.
accent. The brick is just an accent there, right?
It wraps the north portion of the building, and it continues under the covered entry and connects to the
Okay, and
back
around the
wall.
corner?
Yeah, and it goes around the corner, so it's a material that's not just a facade here, but it does continue
Okay.
around the north side, and it does.
Why'd you go metal panels then in between the stone and the brick on that vertical plane, the 2 stories above?
Yeah, over the covered entry, I think we looked at wood, which would have been perhaps a more common, and there's sort of wood storefronts. I think our thinking on that was that it's gonna be a more permanent than wood. I think wood.
In maintenance?
That maintenance is just not gonna wear as well over time and gonna be something that's gonna require maintenance. And I think something that looks more consistent and felt more correct to us, frankly, next to
Okay,
it's a veneer, it's a finished material, but it doesn't wanna. And I'll say this, I looked at wood quite a bit. There was, what's back there now, this thing that looks like a chicken coop, that is this kind of old wood fire escape on the back of the building. I kind of like it in ways, but I think it's a little too casual. There has been some pushback when we have looked at that being wood, that it just was not up to, and currently it is kind of the back alley at the back, the dirty back way of the Nugget building. That is going to be filled in, and it's going to be like a Main Street, or a First Street facade. And so I think that the back alley aspect of it isn't going to feel appropriate, in the future. So, that was a part of our thinking on that as well, Mark.
okay. And the reason you differentiated above, when you have brick that wraps around the alley, but then you went to metal panels on this east facade going up rather than brick was just to have a break from the stone, or what was the logic of that?
Yeah, it's we did not, just to take a step back and describing this application or this amendment, we didn't adjust the floor areas. We did very minor exterior material adjustments here for the
Yeah.
conversation. And so this projection at level 2 over the covered entry in brick, you could say that would make sense, but it did make sense to articulate it as something that was different and lighter. And the current chicken coop or the wood back stair, the back way to the second floor that's there, had a similar character to what we see here with this horizontal metal.
Yeah. Well, I don't normally deliberate this long, but again, probably one of the most iconic buildings in this entire town, so. I think, I don't have any other questions. I think we're moving towards continuance, but I'd like to hear from any public comments.
I guess I have one question.
Oh.
The windows, we changed the windows from arch to flat. Is there any way we could get a partial approval? Or, I'm sorry, I'm a little ignorant
On the what? The windows?
on the windows.
Can I go look at let's go back to the slide, Erica, if you would, showing the original, you mean windows? Oh. I mean, well, you know what? It's not on the darn agenda.
What's not on the agenda, Mark?
The change in the windows.
It's in the application, the CA. The removing the arch top.
Well, okay,
There's roof adjustments. There's a laundry list of
okay,
things. It's
but
not just exterior materials and it's not just tower doors.
Okay.
It's a dozen or so
yeah,
items. I think what we were probably hoping for was an approval minus a condition on the tower or things you might have issue with.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, then it doesn't work, but. I think
because of
we're-
construction scheduling, you ready to do it?
Correct.
When's this done? No, what's the finish date?
2 or 3 years, depending on.
Jeez. Okay. Well, I don't know if 30 days has much to do with a 3-year schedule, but I mean, if we continue the whole thing, unless you've got, I want to be pragmatic, unless there's something.
Well, it'd be nice to get the roof lines. I mean, I could defer to Peter, but I think, like the shed roof lines rather than the sloped roofs would nice to be approved because, we are budgeting, ordering materials and all of that.
But is it on the critical path? I don't think so. The whole building, I don't know. Well, anyway, let me think about that. But Peter, what you're asking is some interim approval to go back from this rendering that you've presented here. Would you put that back up to reinstall the arched windows, right?
I'm just thinking of Erica here. I know she would like to be tidy and see this button up, but
No, I
Well,
think, Mark, what they're asking is they just want to know, and maybe you can verbally provide feedback that the changes to the windows and perhaps the change to the upper third level from that arched roof form to that shed roof form are appropriate, and your main concerns sound like it's materiality and perhaps the tower.
okay, let's do the eye test. Could you go back to the previous slide that shows so you want to return to those arched windows?
No, they do not. They just want to know if you find the new windows appropriate, I believe.
you
Oh,
see them here is what we're.
The new is on the right.
yeah, no, I know, but I mean, with respect to verticality and form, okay. Well, by the way, it seems like they should there's no confusion from the passerby of that this is an addition versus real, and that's the prime goal of this. But also to complement some, tradition, I don't know, Eric, I'll ask you, wouldn't we want some historic looking trim or something that's not so stark a contemporary contrast to the historic landmark building? I mean, isn't there some middle ground to complement but not compromise on
With
the
the
window?
Erica,
windows?
would
Oh,
you,
do you want me to stop sharing, JJ? Well, JJ was muted.
We tried to play off Colorado's storefront, the existing storefront, which uses form cast steel as well. And so that is where a lot of these materials are coming from. They're not necessarily new, Mark.
Mark, to answer your question, it's a pretty complicated question. I think you could go either way. I think, to move towards less ornate, less very simple design, especially because the Nugget is such an ornate building, and there's not a lot of buildings in town that have the design of the Nugget with the curved windows and the sandstone. And even with the materiality, I know the applicant looked at even extending the brick all the way to the Nugget, and the brick with the sandstone's such a difficult material to find a complementary yet not clashing yet not overwhelming material to work with. I worked with the applicant, and we worked very hard on finding a stone that would complement the sandstone, and it
mean a
was,
brick.
or the brick, like even the brick next to the sandstone was perhaps not exactly.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, so, but in terms of the windows, perhaps the applicant could add something that, ties in more with the Nugget, but I do think the simplistic design also
Yeah, I'm saying
does.
complement, not
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah, you could ask the applicant that. I will say also, Cindy from Colorado Historical Society was very much in support of this addition and the materials, and found that it was substantially more compliant with preservation theory now than the original approval from 2005.
Go ahead, Peter.
I was just gonna continue on your question about trim and the masonry, the historic stone facade, that sort of the colored version here we see and how you kind of experience it. The consistency of material and the simplicity of it, though it is ornate, at the same time, it is a material that gets to the windows. And like, I don't think adding trim or something that is different than the wall is the right call. Like, I think there's a preference for a simple wall treatment that transitions to a window and doesn't have like some trim highlighted or in between, like a framing element. That's not what we see in these punched openings and these nice thick stone walls. So
Okay. Huh. So Erica, I guess I would almost just like to visualize an alternative trim treatment versus this stark, more contemporary look that kind of just bridges a gap. It seems such a stark difference, and we want to differentiate, but man, I don't know if we want to go this far. I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm saying maybe I would want to see an option of that trim treatment.
An option could be, especially on that brick portion, maybe there's, a brick pattern above the doors or windows that just add a bit of design
Yeah.
to them and are a little less. I think there's some options.
hey, Erica, can you go back to the black and white, the 2005, and just looking at trim. So I'll point out, so the addition, which goes down to the street on the north, continues up as the pavilion third level. And there were these brows and some sort of arched headers, and there what this sort of concept was one where we were like trying to not have to create these more decorative header elements, Mark.
Yeah.
And I think so. When we look at this, even this approval, which was shown in masonry, did not have a trim to the windows. Like the windows and doors were set
Okay.
into with masonry at this point. I think we took a similar approach. We set these simplified doors and windows in brick or in wood and did not have a trimming element added.
Yeah.
To them.
Okay.
So I don't know that that's gonna feel better, or
I don't know either. I
Yeah.
kind of like trim was too all encompassing. I should have said maybe the header or brow treatment, because maybe this is too extreme, but maybe there's something more complementary but not copycat to the original building, it seems, Garrick, please go back to the addition. I mean, we're making one heck of a stark change, and differentiation's one thing, but night and day, I don't know, it's just a little unsettling to have that degree of stark contrast. And maybe just a little bit of looking at, I guess,
May
looking
I
at the
share another
window
view, Mark?
headers. Go ahead. Yeah, if you want to share something, go ahead.
Erica, may I please share my screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I was gonna say, in this view, remember that that's set back quite a few feet.
Yes, exactly.
I know. But
I'm gonna share one where it's kind of angling from up on fur, and it kind of allows the brick to catch a little more sun. And the idea of the brick was to kind of speak more to the sandstone color. So it wasn't meant to be as stark as it's kind of being shown in that other image.
Yeah, whose office is that? Okay.
Some architect in town, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. All right, such a simple issue, but definitely we have to get this right on this landmark building. And I still believe that I would like to use the word consider perhaps and show an optional brow treatment or, I guess here's a question. The material that you've gone to on metal on that, proud appendage that comes out on the second floor, I mean, really, it's going to look the same, even if it's wood.
yes, I think.
If it was wood, it would connect to the neighbor, that office that you just identified a little bit more. And we're hoping to allow the Nugget building to stand on its own more so.
And the neighboring building has a level 2 and 3, kind of a barnwood, board and bat, pretty casual, alley appropriate in ways. And I think painted wood and brick storefront, and pretty casual, not too pretentious. But to JJ's point, I think we're it was clear we wanted to accentuate and have the historic Nugget facades not sort of bled north and into our addition here, but to have a complementary addition that works with it but remains distinct from it, and much more.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Public comment? They've all run away. We wore them out. I don't see any electronically either, so. All right, well,
Mark, I want to share one last photo just of the tower image that wasn't shared, though, with the open tower door to the north as well.
Yeah.
This is, if you can see my screen now, still.
Yep.
okay, yeah, I see it. I'm making notes on the motion here, just a second. Rise and, to roof parapet element. Okay. Even though it wasn't on, well, I don't know if it was in the C area. Am I going to see this cement type blended finish on the continuation?
Yes, assuming that's continued, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And
I think one other, if you're okay with the remainder of the application, I think not approving the tower and coming back with that certainly works for us. If there's more concerned, which sounds like there may well be, we'll be back with whatever that is.
Well, it boils down to the eyebrow treatment of the, anyway, we're not supposed to be having dialogue now, but I get it.
I can
And
just naively just blurt out something, whatever you could approve on the shopping list would just be comforting to us.
I know.
Just that those.
instructions good advice. I appreciate, okay, so, and 30 days on a 3-year project, hopefully is not going to ruin the schedule, but I'm sensitive to earmarks. I lived the battle of construction for 40 years, and schedules. And appreciate your comment. So, all right, I'm just making my note on a revised motion to continue. And I'll ask staff, can we do it next month to expedite this? I know I'm available in April. That would be April.
Peter, does that date work for you? April 18th?
No, it does not.
No?
No?
No, we're having not me, we have, babies on the way on the team, so April's not a good month. For the
Well, I
team.
mean the two of you can't present or?
It's just more the preparation in the background, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever date, I mean, you want to delay it till May?
May might be, better if there's.
That's the 21st?
Okay, it would be
Well,
this May 16th.
May.
May 16th.
Is it, wait a minute, Erica, are you sure that's not the 23rd?
Of
'Cause our
May
Yeah, the HARC meeting will be on the 21st.
21st, then it would be, oh, yes, because, yep, so it'd be the 23rd.
I mean, I hate to delay it. Now that's 2 months and now I'm getting sensitive to your construction schedule, but I have,
You see how we work.
but I have no choice. Babies interfered with my decision.
Peter, this is just a suggestion, do you want it continued to April? And if that doesn't work, we could continue without discussion from April to May? Just to give you guys the option of presenting in April, if that's a possibility.
And all we're talking about is browsing the windows and looking at the tower with the revised material on the side of it, right?
I think that probably does no harm. I
It's up
don't
to you.
think it's going to happen for us in April.
Well, if you're sure it's not gonna happen, I hate to do that because then we have the agenda and we always,
Well, I have one question. The tower, I thought, takes some thought and could maybe take longer.
yeah.
I'd almost like to isolate that issue.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I got it on the
just
wind.
leave it. And then for
Well-
the others, in terms of the mass and scaling and materials, and it looks to me that like really with the materials, the one place that we're looking at is that little pop out.
Covered in.
Yeah,
It's the
well,
covered entry. And so I'm just wondering if we can.
separate them.
Yeah, separate to where tower is like, just as Erica's for the moment, like take it off the plate. Then like the upstairs windows, the shed roofs, because there's another shed roof on the west side.
Yeah.
And like take those shopping list items and then
So,
maybe in April, see if we can just address that one.
yeah, that's pretty simple fix or consideration. But I don't know how to break this motion and separate number one, the tower and to a different date. I guess I can to a different date. Erica, right? And then I could take the new number 3 on the window brow treatment and leave that.
You could also,
I'd like to respond to windows quicker. I get
yeah,
it.
you could also base your approval or continuance and just remove the tower entirely from the application. And when the applicant feels ready, they can come back and submit for another CA amendment for you to review the tower.
Okay, well, that's an easy thing. And then we're on the agenda in April. Oh, that's a good idea. Actually, thank you, Erica. So, so I'm going to continue to the April date was what?
April 18th.
18th. And then Erica, then what I would do is, if they don't have, they still come in and then even if they don't have number 1, the tower door or the relook at the tower finished, if I add this second condition, well, it'd be third because you have one, number 2 already. just showing a material option for the brow treatment of the windows and or trim, that could be approved at that meeting. But then I've still got a continuation of the tower if they're not ready with their drawings, right? So how do we get the window portion of that if we get to April 18th approved, but then we haven't satisfied this or finished the discussion and drawings on the tower doors? How do-
Peter, do you want to come back with another CA amendment for the tower? Do you want to separate these applications?
I think separating the tower seems appropriate.
Okay, so
Um,
Mark, I would
All right.
make it a condition of this application that the tower part of the application has been removed and will not be considered in CAA number 4.
Okay, but I can read into the record that we are agreeing with your recommendation for RE 10B2 that a revision to the plans will be deferred to a different CA.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right, sorry that took so long. We just got to get this right on this building. So here we go. I move to continue to April 18th, CAA number 3 to the contributing structure THS 5SM 1537 at 207 West Colorado based on the staff memo dated March 31st, 2025. Wait a minute, the staff memo dated, it's not March 31st, it's today's.
21st, sorry.
Yeah, 21st, 2025, the following conditions. Number 1, the alternative design regarding tower doors, intact or not, for the walkway and tower treatment shall, per RE 10B2, shall be deferred to a future separate CA. Number 2, as written. Number 3, show, and I got to cross off the part because I already got convinced on materials. I don't need to see some different materials on the actual facade. Show additional window trim or window brows to more complement the traditional treatment area, but not copy the historic building window trim per, it's got to get the window number, which was on, well, that's not even, wasn't even on the old windows. Okay, per RE 9 windows A A. This motion is based on evidence testimony provided at a public hearing held on March 21st, 2025. No such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code. Revised plans incorporating the conditions of approval should be submitted within 60 days of approval, or the approval becomes null and void. Well, it wasn't approved, so it's continued, and we'll make this a quick meeting on the 18th, and I guess we'll just defer the bigger picture on the tower to a future CA. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And-
Thank you all.
We will adjourn at 10.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
10:23.
Bon voyage.
And Erica, thank you
Thank
thank you for your service. Good luck to you.
Thank you
And
so much.
we appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well,
I thought this has been a request.
it's amazing how a National Historic Landmark building can give you pause, right? And say, are we gonna get this right? Okay. All right.